Ridiculously good-looking people killing Nazis. It should be fun. K-Dogs Movie Review. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is directed by Guy Ritchie and stars Henry Cavill, Alan Ritchson, and Alex Pettyfer. The British military recruits a small group of highly skilled soldiers to strike against German forces behind enemy lines during World War II. When I first saw the trailer for this movie, I was pretty excited. Something I often talk about on this channel is monkey brain action, and this looked exactly like that. A group of soldiers led by some fun actors killing Nazis. And it's rated R, so there were no limitations on language or action. It was labeled as an action comedy, a genre I heavily enjoy. What's there not to like? There are only 3 things I think you need for this type of movie to do well: likable characters, good action choreography, and a fun, love to hate, over the top villain. Just those 3 things. But that's really all you need for me to turn off my brain and enjoy this type of movie. So, did it live up to the hype that I was expecting? Was I able to just have fun with this movie? Was it a good time? Well, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I didn't really like this movie at all. This movie was weird because as I was watching it, I kept getting frustrated because I'm watching events happen and I'm thinking to myself, I should be liking this, but I'm not. As the story progressed and certain events transpire, and as the action ramps up during the 3rd act, I kept thinking, it's gonna hit me soon. It's gonna get me. It's gonna reel me in soon. And then the credits happened. I was never there with the movie. It never hooked me in. And I feel as if the biggest problem, at least for me, with this movie is that it felt like the creators understood the tone that they wanted to go for, an action comedy, but this movie is also based on real events. And so while they do embellish it in certain ways, I think they failed to really embellish more. They tried to reel it in and make it a little bit realistic with certain things. So they didn't go into goofy territory, which is what I think this movie really needed. Look, you can either go ultra realistic World War II drama about this mission, or you can go over the top action comedy. And this movie definitely tried to go more the comedy route, but it didn't push itself enough. So instead, we kind of get this awkward, not that really funny action movie. Okay, so let me back it up and really get into this. So as I said in the description, during World War II, the British are losing the war in the Atlantic to these German U-boats. So Winston Churchill's goal is to cut off the supplies for the German U-boats. However, he has not gained the support of Parliament to do so. So he needs to assemble this secret group of soldiers that are going to complete this task for him. Henry Cavill is the leader of this group and is tasked with assembling this team. A pet peeve of mine that I do see in movies, which is apparent here, the use of anti-heroes or criminals for missions. Because this movie does the trope where they frequently say, oh, these guys are real bad. They never listen to orders, but we really need them because they get the job done. The movie tries to tell us that these guys are all bad. I mean, Henry Cavill is in prison at the beginning of this movie, but he's hired, and so are these other guys because they're the best at what they do. The movie actually doesn't ever really show them doing anything that bad at all. I mean, I think the worst that he does, and this movie is rated R, by the way, the worst that I think he does is steal a lighter from someone and a jacket. I mean, this is besides killing Nazis, which obviously killing people is bad, but in a war, we're killing Nazis, it's fine. So if the worst thing you do is steal a lighter, I'm not really convinced that you're a bad person who doesn't follow orders. Because, not to get too into spoilers, they follow the orders and they get the job done. Pretty much listen to everything they're told. Yes, there are hiccups in the mission, as with all movies, but they basically do exactly what they're tasked to do. I was never convinced that any of these characters were ex-criminals or bad in any way at all. I don't know. If that's just an aside, I hate when movies try and convince me that someone's bad when, they don't really want to make them out to be too bad because they don't want the audience to hate them. As the audience, we need to like our protagonists and sympathize with their struggle. So if you make them too bad, we're not going to want to see them succeed. I didn't see any moments during this movie where I was like, oh, those are bad guys. No, they're heroes for this movie. Okay, so what about the characters themselves and the interactions? An integral part of an action comedy. The chemistry here is almost there, but it fails. The dialogue here is not that great at all. I barely laughed in this movie, and you can tell they're trying to do some funny things here and there, but the jokes weren't working. The character interactions aren't good at all. They're very surface level. I liked when Henry Cavill and Alan Ritchson were on screen together, but they're separated for a lot of this movie. They barely interact with one another, even though they're supposed to be this close-knit team of, I think it's like 5 or 6 total characters. The interactions between them aren't very funny. They're not that great. They all kind of seemed like the same exact person. They didn't really have personalities that were wildly different. A really annoying part of this movie is that Henry Cavill sets up this team because each of these members has a specific skill that they bring that are going to get this mission completed successfully. But the movie never actually shows them doing the skill that they were hired for. They sort of do it on the surface, but we don't really dive into them being experts at all at what they're doing. So it just felt like a setup that was cool to start with. Okay, cool. We have the sailing guy, the bombs guy, the reconnaissance guy, all these specific skill sets, but you could have swapped them out throughout the entire movie and nothing would change. By the end of the movie, everyone's just doing the same exact shit. So it just felt kind of stupid. So the characters were pretty lackluster. Alan Ritchson's character is probably the best. He plays this Swedish guy who kills Nazis unconventionally, doesn't use a gun unless he absolutely has to. He uses a bow and arrow. And so that was fun to see when it did happen. But it kind of repeated itself. And so this is where I get into the action choreography of this movie. It's pretty boring. Besides Alan's character, all of our characters hold their guns at the hips like this and just instantly kill any Nazi that they encounter. There is no tension at all in the action. Once in a while, a character will pick up a bigger gun, like a big turret or something, and that's kind of cool. But most of this film is like playing a video game on very easy. You're just walking around, shooting blindly, killing everyone, not taking any damage. And there's just no tension there. I never felt threatened at all throughout this movie. The Nazis are laughably bad. And you could play that up. That could be your angle. Our heroes are just so fucking good at what they do, while the villains are just, played as idiots. But they don't play the Nazis as idiots. They just play them as people who die very easily and are incredibly incompetent. Actually, no, it doesn't even show them being incompetent. They just get shot immediately as our heroes walk around with guns at their hips. As I said, there are a couple scenes with Alan's character where he's doing some hand-to-hand combat on a ship, and that's pretty fun to see. But again, most of this movie, the Nazis are dying incredibly fast, and it's not really played up for comedy. And I kept saying to myself, okay, maybe they're just waiting to really ramp it up for the third act. But by the time we get to the third act, A, I'm already pretty checked out, but B, it doesn't even get that much more exciting. It just sort of ends. And that's another problem I have with this movie is the editing. Scenes will just sort of end, not where they're supposed to. We're sort of waiting for a character to do something or something to happen specifically, but it just sort of ends and then we're put in a brand new place. I was sort of left wondering, wait a minute, what happened right after that? How did we get here? Multiple days will happen in between scenes. And I'm left wondering, what happened during that time? Because, for example, so we have our group led by Henry Cavill, but we also have these other two spies that are on the actual island where all the supplies that they want to blow up are located. The two spies spend some time with our big bad villain, which I'll get to in a second. But besides that, I'm not really sure what's happening when they're there for, 2+ weeks waiting for these guys to arrive. Also, too, with the editing, we would randomly start having conversations with characters that we hadn't met before. And I was just so confused with where it was going. And it just felt like a lot of times certain character interactions were thrown in where they didn't have to be. Okay, so the characters are very surface level. They're not really that funny, and the action is not that good. What about the villain? At least if we have a really over-the-top bad villain that's fun to hate, maybe that could save it. But no, we don't. Again, it's almost there. The big bad villain they set up as this guy that they say is the only thing worse than a Nazi. And we get hints at what he's capable of, and it's effective, but it doesn't go anywhere. It just sort of ends. And it doesn't end in a satisfying way at all whatsoever. When this Nazi meets his demise, again, that's not a spoiler. It's Nazis lose in World War II. When this guy finally meets his demise, it just happens. And there was no build up. It was just kind of like, okay, we're there. It wasn't fun in any way. It was too easy. It was, again, like we were playing a video game on easy. Super easy. It's almost like we were playing the tutorial, kind of like at the beginning of Force Unleashed when you played as Darth Vader and you were just incredible. This whole movie is kind of like that. But it has the problem where playing Darth Vader was really fucking cool because all of his moves and the action, the force powers you could use were cool. But in this movie, the action is just boring. It doesn't go anywhere. I hate to pick apart the writing in a movie like this, but I start to do that when I'm not enjoying the characters, when I'm not enjoying the action, when I'm not enjoying the villain, because honestly, when you have those three other things, you don't really care about the writing as much. Movies are movies. Weird, convenient stuff is going to happen. But if you don't care about those things, you start to hyper fixate on the writing. The writing is pretty boring here. I know these are based on real events, so you can't go too far-fetched with it, but you're already taking a lot of liberties here. They're already killing way more people than actually died during those missions. So, add some more tension to it. The writing just felt very disjointed. And again, that probably comes back to a lot of the editing choices. It felt like this movie was definitely longer and scenes sort of continued, but we just cut at certain moments. I don't know. I know I'm being a little hyperbolic with this, but I think with this premise and these specific actors, this movie could have been an absolute home run. But it just felt like there was no passion thrown into it. It's competently shot, but there's nothing really super engaging or, interesting about the way it's shot. Sound design is fine. It's not bad, but it's not great either. The music is kind of annoying. They try and throw in a lot of pump up action music because this is an action comedy. But I just felt myself annoyed because I wasn't enjoying the action or comedy itself. So it felt like the music was lying to me. Again, I feel like I'm really ripping on this movie. It wasn't so awful, but I think it just wasn't that exciting. When you have an action comedy and it's not exciting, that's pretty bad. This whole movie just felt kind of awkward. It's like if you told an AI program to write an action comedy about killing Nazis. That's what it feels like. It feels like an AI program wrote this because it includes good-looking, likable actors. It's made by a decently well-known director. It has these surface-level bad villains, but the way in which everything actually transpires is just not right. Just something felt off. It's like it's drawing inspiration from other movies that do it better. So ultimately, I don't know. I left not really enjoying myself. Honestly, after seeing the Rotten Tomatoes score for this movie, I think it's sitting at a 70% critic rate and a 90% audience rate. I am surprised. Did I see a different movie? I don't think I was in a bad mood when I saw it. It just kind of felt like, eh. Please let me know what you guys thought of this movie in the comments below. Did you like it more than I did? Did you not really enjoy it like me? What's your favorite action comedy? Till next time.